Hello there everyone and welcome to day 20 of the MBD month of mindset. Today is all about writing down. And the great thing about writing down, especially is when you've got a lot of thoughts rattling around in here, just like talking can help you to process those thoughts in a different way, because your brain is translating the thoughts into the physical, mechanical act of speech. The same thing is true when we write. So our thoughts have to be translated into the mechanical act of moving our hand with a pen on a piece of paper or moving our fingers on the keyboard. Writing's been, on top of that though, writing's just been an amazingly transformative tool for me. A lot of the things I do for these videos are completely and utterly unscripted, but some of the videos like the You Are Enough or the You Are Not Weak videos that I've put out in the past, if you've not seen them, by the way, I'd recommend you go back and check them out. But those have come from periods of sitting down and writing or typing. And they've allowed me to transform the thoughts I have into something tangible, into something that can actually be crafted or changed, or into something that I understand differently from the process of writing it. Several years back, long before I ever even intended to, I actually wrote this. It's a book called The 11th Hour, and reasonably rare now, by the way. Clearly an obsession with purple that spans long before Mindset by Dave. I wrote that book, don't even remember now. It was a long time ago. It got first actually published though about 6 years ago. And I wrote that as strictly as therapy, to be perfectly honest. I was going through an extremely depressive period. The story itself is about a man who tries to take his own life because he feels down on his luck, feels like he's got nothing left in life, and then goes on to kind of see beyond the failed suicide, and beyond that goes on to see the beauty in life, to re-fall in love with life itself again. And didn't think I was writing something that was semi-autobiographical. I just wrote the first sort of 2-3 chapters just out of pure, I've got thoughts in my head and I want to represent them somehow. And I honestly thought that that would be it, because that could be the whole process. I wrote those couple of chapters and that was the moment that I was in. That was a survival mechanism at that exact time, and then I'd move on from there. But then, I showed those chapters to my wife and to my mum, and they were like, we want more of this. And again, it was never ever intended to go any further than that, but I wrote the rest just to essentially kind of give them the next part of the story, because they wanted to know where it went. And both of them pushed me to approach a publisher and get it done and get it out. And that was it's a complete and utter story of fiction, but there's obviously sort of pseudo-autobiographical things in there. And writing that book was a source of sort of almost self-therapy for me. Then recently I've been writing a book called Your End Is Not Defined by Your Start, and that is the actual true story of my life. And it's interesting with that there are several traumas within my life that I have dealt with. So writing about them now, because I've dealt with them, I'd sit there and it was quite a matter-of-fact thing. I was almost writing an account of what happened without the emotional reaction to it. But on the ones that were kind of smaller traumas that I never thought, I'll go back and deal with those, and just left untouched, I actually found that those were the ones that snuck up on me and gave me this almost surprise attack of emotions that basically I was, where on earth did that come from? We're talking some of the more what we would consider to be smaller or insignificant parts of our lives, significant enough to obviously make it into a story. And it made me really realise just how powerful for me that either speaking about my problems, speaking about my past experiences, or writing about my past experiences has been in transforming the way that they are stored up here in a positive way. Because it was when I got to those ones that I'd almost even forgotten about, that actually bringing them back up again caused me to need to actually go through that process of processing them and dealing with it that way. Now, I'm not saying that you have to go through all of that. All I'm saying is that writing can be a very transformative tool. And if that is simply you write an account of what happened that day, if you write just an account of your feelings, if you do what's called a brain dump, great one before bed, by the way, is a brain dump. If you've got tons of things on your mind, your brain isn't keeping you awake because of the things on your mind. Exactly. It's keeping you awake because it wants you to remember those things on your mind. So it's going to repeat. If we do a brain dump, we get a journal or something similar and we write down all of those things, we commit the responsibility to remembering those things to the journal. And it, again, frees up some space up here. But the one I just want to sort of consider before I move on, because I'm already aware that this one's getting quite long, is the idea of an anxiety list. Now, an anxiety list sounds like a really stupid idea in principle, because what I want you to do is I want you to think of everything that makes you anxious, everything that you're worried about happening in your future, and write it down. One of the other things in this story, anxiety is represented really well in this story about the point at which when the main character becomes anxious, the type of things that he's thinking about. Some of the things that we think about when we're anxious are anchored in reality. Other of them are completely and utterly anchored in fantasy. So the first thing we do once we've got a list of all of the things that we're anxious about is we look at that and go, which one of these things is actually not likely to happen at all? And we scratch them off the list, right? We now have a reduced list of anxiety. Then we look at that list and go, okay, which one of these things that's left am I actually going to do anything about? Am I going to take any time to prepare for, or I'm going to do something to maybe change the possibility of that happening? And again, we scratch off all the ones that we're not. And now we're left with a much smaller list of things that, yes, are possible that could happen, and yes, we are going to choose to do something about those things. And then what you want to do, turn that thing into a to-do list and turn that thing into, right, here is actually how I can just begin to combat these things, because anxiety a lot of the time is, again, worry that is unfounded, undirected in terms of just generalized around a certain situation of everything that could potentially go wrong, rather than us. And that when we think of everything that could go wrong, we feel like we've got to handle all of that at the same time. But when we're left with a list of things that might actually go wrong and we can actually do something about, and then we can tackle those things in a systematic way, it turns anxiety and worry to our favor and allows us to prepare instead of panic. So that's it. There's a lot of stuff about writing there. As always with any of these challenges, choose the bits that work for you. This isn't to say that everything I've said is going to be right for absolutely everyone, but give it a little try. Remain curious, and as always, let me know how you get on with it.